So the first question I like to ask at events like this is, how many of you would like some greater happiness in your lives? And you can raise your hand and show me if that's you. Yeah, most of us do, right? Oh, I like the thumbs up. Yay, I'm all about emojis and interactions. Okay, if that's you, just mute yourself. I'm going to mute a couple of you. Oh, yes, I think it was the one of you that's two of you. All right. Just going to take a breath now that we're beginning. So hopefully you've played with your Zoom features so that you know what you're doing when I ask. This is a relatively short talk, so just please limit your distractions and give the gift of your own presence to yourself. So mute that phone, ask the kids to stay out or join you and listen. I may have cats jumping on and off the desk, but they're pretty quiet, so we won't worry about them. But just give this time to yourself and make sure that your distractions are limited so that you can really pay attention and soak this in. And remember, if you want to rewatch it, it'll be in the Facebook group. And if you're like, I hate Facebook, I'm never going there, just message me. I am recording this so I can send you the link as well. All right. Okay, cool. So I'm grateful you're here. I'm super happy that so many people signed up, whether they show up or not, because what it tells me is that more of us are putting attention on our happiness, not only because we need it, but hopefully because we know we deserve it. COVID has brought some extra bonus stress to our lives and to the world these last couple of years. I can't believe it's already been 2 years. And it was not that great before COVID. So even before COVID, depression statistics were like 1 out of 4 women in the United States were on antidepressants, and even more reported symptoms of depression and anxiety. And today I heard a startling statistic about college students, which is that 40% of them report being so overwhelmed on most days and so stressed that they don't feel like they can function. 40% of college students. And I know that that peters down to our high school students as well. Maybe not so much in the younger kids, but definitely I see it in my high schoolers. You might see it in yours. And life is just more stressful than it used to be. And so it's so important that we take time to learn the skills and actions and habits of happiness so that we can practice them ourselves and then share those with our children and our friends and our peers, because ultimately each one of us impacts everyone around us. So today you are going to learn the basics of the foundations for happiness, and hopefully it will give you some hope and give you some practices that you can begin learning and using today to create greater happiness in your own life. All right, so before I really introduce myself, I am Tamara, as you can see on the screen. And before I tell you about me and why I do this work, I would like for you to just take a moment and rate your own happiness level right now in this moment. 0 being the most unhappy you've ever been, and 10 being the happiest you've ever been. And just write that down somewhere. You don't have to share it, but if you feel like throwing it in the chat, you can. Or you can save it for later, because at the end of our hour, I'll ask you to rate it again. And it's my hope that after introducing a couple of practices to you, your happiness level will increase even in this short time together. So take a moment, rate your happiness 0 to 10, and then we'll keep going. And if you're on Facebook, you could put it in the chat as well. All right, thank you, Kathy. Okay. All right, probably you have yours by now. So let's start now with a direct experience. Many of us, I mean, it's kind of a vacation week for a lot of people. So you may be less stressed than usual, or you might still be in party planning stage, or you're doing all of that and going back and forth to work and taking care of kids and all of that. So often at this point in the day, it's our highest stress point. And I want to give you a practice that is quick and simple to really, really quickly bring down your stress. This is called a quick coherence technique, or the inner ease technique. And this is a practice from the Institute of Heart Math, which studies the relationship between our hearts and our happiness. They are a very cool group that do a lot of super interesting experiments and research. And this is one of the centering practices that they use. So what we're going to do is I invite you to put your hands in what's called a mudra. Some of you might be familiar with that from meditation. It's just a hand position, and there are hundreds of them. And then I invite you to just place your hands over your heart. This technique that we're about to do is called the quick coherence technique, because what happens when we're in stress is that our heart rhythms actually get into this very incoherent level. And what that does is it depresses our immune system. And if we're feeling frustration or anger or anxiety or stress, it can actually depress our immune system for several hours. Just 5 minutes of a stress response can cause 6 hours of a depleted immune system. And so what this does is it puts our heart rhythm back into coherence, which helps our minds and our hearts communicate better. And that improves or boosts our immune system for up to 6 hours. So place your hands in that mudra, and this is called the Thunderbolt mudra. And in Buddhism, it means that it will help us to increase our sense of hope and our confidence, especially in the face of obstacles. COVID's a giant obstacle, and we still have the regular life obstacles to face. So rest your hands on your heart center, fingers crossing, thumbs wide. And then if you're comfortable doing so, go ahead and close your eyes. There are 3 steps to this process. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, I encourage you to simply drop your gaze so that you're not looking right at me, but you're going inward, focusing more on yourself. If it's comfortable for you to sit nice and straight, do so, but I always say that comfort matters more than posture. And then simply start to take a few deeper, longer breaths, just a little deeper and longer than your normal breath. And as you breathe, direct the energy of that breath in and out of your heart center, so right beneath your hands. Just imagining that your breath, a longer, deeper, slower breath, is moving in and out of your heart center. You're still breathing from your belly. You're imagining the energy of that breath in and out of your heart. With this technique, we breathe this way, in and out of our nose, directing the energy of our breath through our heart for about 1 minute. Now continue breathing gently, and now incorporate the words in your mind: love, ease, compassion. And then I invite you to simply repeat those words: love, ease, compassion, for another full minute. Just like a mantra in your mind: love, ease, compassion. And I invite you to go beyond saying those words, but also cultivating that feeling of love, that feeling of ease, that feeling of self-compassion. Love, ease, compassion. To yourself for another 30 seconds or so. Love, ease, compassion. And now the third and final piece is to imagine someone you love, someone who brings up only the most positive and loving emotions within you. Someone who, when you think of them, it makes you smile and it fills you with love. It can even be a pet. So let their face fill your mind and let your heart fill with the positive feelings of love as you imagine them. And continue breathing gently, allowing yourself to fill up with those loving feelings until the love fills you and expands around you. Okay, now just take a moment before you open your eyes and notice how you feel. Notice how calm and grounded you feel, how centered, how much quieter you may feel than you did 4 minutes ago. And then when you're ready, come back into the room, maybe a wiggle of your fingers or your toes. Maybe a couple of deep cleansing breaths. And open your eyes and remember that you can return to this place of peace anytime. That was 3 or 4 minutes. Who wants to share how they feel now as compared to a couple of minutes ago? You can unmute yourself or pop it in the chat, how you feel now versus before we started that. Anybody? Very present. Thank you, Sarah. Good. Anybody else? I feel calmer, that's for sure. Relaxed. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah. It's so quick and so powerful. You can do this any place, anytime. You don't even have to incorporate the mudra. I just think it adds to it. So if you can and you're comfortable doing so, it's a beautiful thing to do. Thank you, Carmen. Carmen feels calmer and present. So beautiful. Now that we're all relaxed and present and centered, I will tell you a little bit more about me and what qualifies me to teach anything about happiness to you. and why it matters so much to me. So I am Tamara Zoner, for those of you who haven't met me. I know a lot of you and have met a lot of you in person. I am a single mom to 3 kids, 16, 15, and 12. So you know, if what I'm teaching you tonight works for me, it can work for anyone. I do have to say that I am one of the lucky ones. We will talk about something called the happiness set point in a few minutes, and I definitely have a naturally high one. I came into the world smiling. My mom tells me, she called me sunshine, and I generally have a happier disposition. But just because I have that natural happier disposition doesn't mean that I've always been happy. And one of the reasons it's so important to me to teach this work and to share this work is because I know just what it feels like to be unhappy, to feel stuck in uncomfortable emotions, and to feel like there's no way out of them. I managed to turn my life around and leave a very toxic, emotionally abusive marriage to becoming one of the happiest people that I know. And I've witnessed others who I've worked with do a similar turnaround. Not everyone had the same circumstance as me, but people who felt like they just couldn't be happy, through the work that I'm going to show you tonight and teach you tonight, and through practice of it, they began to turn their lives around as well. I started teaching this when I was working with seniors, when I was working full-time in a senior community. And one of my residents, after a 4-part lecture on this, so a bit more information than you're getting tonight, told me that before she came to my classes, she couldn't see a way out of her depression. She didn't want to be taking pills because she didn't like the way they made her feel. And then after, she said that this work showed her a way out, and she hadn't felt that happy in a very long time. And I've had so many stories like that. And I've worked now with seniors, from seniors in high school and even younger, all the way to our seniors who are in their 90s, mid 90s, and this work is still making a difference. So I strongly believe it can make a difference for you. Okay, I'm going to skip my whole story because a lot of you have heard it and you can listen to it on multiple podcasts at this point. But my goal for you tonight is to leave with at least one tool or awareness that will help you create a happier tomorrow. All right, I'm going to share my screen in a second. So in this particular type of happiness work that I do, I am a certified happiness trainer, certified through a method called Happy for No Reason. It's based on a book by Marcy Shimoff, who based her research on positive psychology and research on happiness. And so this is the platform that I share from you, but I'm constantly doing more and more research on happiness. I'm learning from every source that I can because I like to give you a broad picture. But let's talk about what it means to be happy for no reason. So I'm going to do my best to share my screen with you now. And present this. Okay, let me, there we go. I had to move my screen of us. There we go. All right, can you all see that? Happy for no reason is an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on circumstances. Okay. It's cool. When I'm on Facebook Live, I can also see what you're seeing. Right. So an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on circumstances. And this doesn't mean that you will walk around 24/7 in this kind of Pollyanna state of mind where everything's just happy and wonderful and you skip through fields of sunflowers. But what it does mean is that no matter what challenges come up in your life, because they come up on a daily basis, you will be able to return to this inner state of peace and well-being more easily, more efficiently. And that allows you to move through life more gracefully. being happy for no reason isn't a temporary feeling, it's an inner state of being. When Marcy was compiling the research for the book, Happy for No Reason, I'm gonna jump back and forth between sharing the screen and not sharing the screen here and there. She found that we're not just happy or unhappy, there's actually a continuum. And share. Okay, there's actually a continuum of happiness. So on the low end of the continuum, we find ourselves unhappy. We feel low, dispirited. We may feel really, really tired or unmotivated, unproductive. We just lack any kind of inner luster. And we don't really want to do anything. Then we have happy for a bad reason. Now, happy for a bad reason is where instead of feeling what we feel and being present in it, we try to avoid what we're feeling. We want to get away from those negative feelings, those lower or depleting emotions like I just described in unhappy. And we may do this through some unhealthy behaviors. Some of us may Netflix and chill for 12 to 14 hours a day. Some of us may indulge in alcohol or drugs. Some of us may spend a little too much time on our Amazon Prime, binge shopping, trying to get things that will make us feel better. And while none of this is bad some of the time, if we're constantly trying to avoid our feelings through the external stuff, then we can develop unhealthy addictions, and those things don't solve our problems for very long. We get a temporary high, and then we're back probably even lower than we were before. Then we move up to happy for a good reason. So happy for good reasons is where we have satisfaction from healthy experiences. We may have a beautiful relationship and have happiness from that. We may have a beautiful home. We may do really well in our career. We may have good friends that we go and enjoy time with. We may love cooking. All of these things are wonderful and there's nothing wrong with them. The only issue is that if any of those things go away, then part of our happiness goes with them. So if I move jobs or move towns or break up, then my happiness falls back down into that lower spectrum. So what we want then is to be happy for no reason, where our inner state of peace and well-being does not depend on our external circumstances. It comes from within. People who are happy for no reason live from happiness instead of for happiness. So we're not out there trying to get happiness. We're bringing happiness into our experiences, and that is pretty amazing. There's that little quote there. When you're happy for no reason, you live from happiness, not for happiness. Okay. Next up is, so I mentioned the happiness set point. So this is one of the most important pieces of research in these fields of happiness and positive psychology over the last 20 years. You've heard the question, do you see the glass as half full or half empty? And it seems like some of us are born with either a positive outlook or a negative outlook. And it is partially true, but it's not the whole story. So we each have this happiness set point that works kind of like a thermostat. So if I set it to 72, then no matter how hot or cold it is outside, my thermostat's going to hover around 72 no matter what happens. So if that's my happiness set point, if something amazing happens, it might go up a little. If something terrible happens, it might go down a little. But ultimately, usually within about a year, if it's a big event, I'll return right back to that happiness set point. Unless I do something to change it. So that explains why, those people who win the lottery are happier for a little bit of time, but then typically they drop back down to just how happy or unhappy they were before. And that's another talk for another time, but typically their finances drop back down to where they were before too. We want to do something about it so that we don't swing up or down, but we consistently raise that happiness set point. And since that's the key to our happiness, let's talk about how it's determined. 50% of that happiness pie is genetic. So that is that you're born with it. I see the glass half full, you see the glass half empty, or vice versa. We're born with it, 50%. It is only 10% circumstance. So a tiny little slice of the pie is our external circumstances, like COVID, like losing a job, like working from home, like getting divorced. It only makes up 10% of our happiness set point. But those are the things we're all trying to control and change, but we really don't have any control over all of that external stuff. What we do have control over is the other 40%, which are our habits of thoughts and behaviors. Our habits of thought and behavior make up 40% of our happiness set points. And it turns out that the biggest difference between happy people and unhappy people, simply their habits. They have different habits. So you might take a moment to consider your own happiness habits or the habits that support your unhappiness. There's more good news though. Some of you may have heard of epigenetics. This is the study of our genes and DNA and how it's expressed based on what else is going on in our lives. And scientists say that our 50% genetic piece can actually be influenced by that piece of thoughts and behavior, by our habits. So what that means is you ultimately have up to 90% control of your happiness set point. We can't control the world around us, even the people around us, but we can control what's going on internally. So sounds simple, right? But if it is that simple, then why aren't more of us making changes to support ourselves? Why aren't more of us engaging in these happiness habits, which I'll tell you what some of them are in a little bit, but to understand why we resist change so much, let's do a little demonstration. So I invite you to hold your hands out and clasp. Oh my goodness, there it goes. Okay, hold on. Weird, wild technical issues. I'm back. All right, clasp your hands together and simply notice which thumb is on top. Okay, so those of you with your right thumb on top, the research shows that you're better thinkers, but you probably knew that. And then those of you with your left thumb on top shows that you're the sexier bunch. All right, that's not the real experiment. That's just for fun. So take your hands, open them back up, and rotate your fingers so that that opposite thumb is on top, and notice how it feels. I see Kathy shaking her head. No, I don't like it. You can unclasp and tell me in the chat or unmute yourself how that felt.
It feels freaky.
Freaky. That's a good one. I haven't heard freaky before. I like that.
A bit uncomfortable.
A bit uncomfortable, awkward. Yes. So that's why we resist change, because it feels freaky. It feels weird. It feels uncomfortable, and we don't like it. So we avoid it. Okay. There's comfort in the status quo. Our subconscious minds love it when things stay the same, and it doesn't care if we're comfortable or uncomfortable. It just likes what is the same. It just likes what we know. So our subconscious minds are not always working for us or with us. They're often working against us to keep things just the way they are, to keep that original thumb on top. What we have to do is get our subconscious minds on board with change, and that takes time and repetition. I read this book about 10 years ago. This what I'm talking about. Happy for No Reason. Marcy Shimoff is the author. You may know her from The Secret, the movie, or from Personal Development if you're an avid follower of it like I am. And what I realized when I read it again a year and a half ago, as I was going through this certification, is that I incorporated almost all of the happiness habits that I'm going to talk about tonight into my life. And 10 years later, I'm a dramatically different person. And I'll say different, but really I am more of who I truly am. And I'm so much happier. The reason I wanted to change was because of my kids. They were my inspiration, but you may have your own, and it may simply be that you're just uncomfortable enough now to want to make a change. All right, I don't want you to take 10 years to be happy, so let's talk about some ways that you can get happier today. One of those habits is the inner ease technique that we just did. Now, the 21 happiness habits fall into 7 main areas of happiness. So that's what we're going to talk about now. And because it's hard to remember 7 of anything, I feel like no matter how old we are, we're going to use a metaphor and call it our home for happiness. We're going to build our home for happiness. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Someone said strange but refreshing with the thumb change. That's cool. And often that is how change feels, right? Strange but refreshing because it gets better later. All right. Let's see where we're at. That's the thermostat. Okay. We begin building anything with a foundation, right? So our foundation in this home for happiness is responsibility. Taking responsibility for your happiness is the first and most important practice or habit of happiness. If I am expecting you or my boss or my president or my mom to make me happy, it is never going to happen. There's this fabulous video that I share in my classes, my longer classes, where you have 2 corporate looking people riding an escalator, and they're going up the escalator, and all of a sudden it stops. And they stand there and they look around and they call for help. And they look at one another and they're like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? This is terrible. But they're on an escalator. There are steps, and they could simply start walking up them. But because they are living as victims, they don't. And so what we want to do in this foundational piece is take responsibility for our happiness by showing up as victors in our lives instead of victims. And that can be really, really hard, and it can be very empowering. The next piece is, the mind. I love the mind. In my classes, the longer classes, I talk about the brain a lot. And if you follow me on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or whatever, I am talking about this a lot because our minds, as I mentioned before, are not always on our sides. And we have a wild amount of thoughts every day, around 60,000 of them on average. And of those 60,000 thoughts, about 95% of them are repeated day after day after day after day. Anybody ever find themselves obsessing, replaying the scene in their mind of what happened or what they wished had happened or how they would have changed it? We're constantly thinking the same thoughts day after day. And about 85% of those 60,000 thoughts are negative. So we're having repeated negative thoughts day after day after day. And I like to tell people that this is not your fault. This is actually how we're wired. We are wired with a negativity bias, and it's how we evolved to this point. It's why we survived, the saber-toothed tigers and the forest fires and the bears, because we paid attention to what's going on around us that's negative so we can keep ourselves safe. but our brains are still acting like cavemen, even though when our phone dings, our lives are not in danger. Okay, so in this area, we focus a lot on the tools and techniques to switch that negativity bias into a positivity bias so that you can have happier, more supportive thoughts. All right, I love the mind. And I love the next piece too, which is the heart. So the heart asks you, do you live with an open heart, with generosity, with love, with kindness? Or do you close yourself off from those things? Do you hold resentment? Do you find it hard to forgive? There have been a lot of, there's a lot of emerging research in the heart. Like I mentioned, the Institute of Heart Math, they're doing a lot of studies now about how the heart and the brain communicate. And this field around our hearts that extends, you might have had an experience where you walk into a room and it feels really open and loving and warm and welcoming, or the opposite, where you walk in and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to come in here. That's the energy of the heart. It actually extends around us 8 to 10 feet. It can be measured. And research is showing that as we do techniques like the inner ease technique, that quick coherence technique, to open our hearts, to get them into coherence, the happier we are. Next is the body. A lot of us forget that we really do need to take care of this package we came in. And the body means looking at how are you nurturing yourself physically? What are you eating? What are you drinking? What are you actually physically putting into your body? Is it good for you? Does it support your mind? Does it support your body? There's more and more emerging research on the effects of our food on our mental health as well as our physical health. So it's not just about the body contains the brain, and we need to treat it right. We also talk about in the body the exercise, right? Do you get movement each day? Are you supporting your physical health and your mental health through movement? Research is also showing that 30 minutes of movement a day has better results than antidepressants. And finally, sleep. Sleep is a big issue that we discuss in this area. Did you know that the quality of sleep that you got last night has a greater impact on your happiness than your income level or marital status? So in longer classes, we talk about how to support our healthy sleep habits and the rest of our body. And then we have the pillar of the soul. This one asks, are you connected to spirit? Are you plugged into spirit or that greater something? It doesn't have to be God. You don't have to be religious. Just having a connection to something greater than yourself and knowing that we are all connected has a positive impact on your happiness. And so in this area, we practice some meditations, we learn some different techniques. Excuse me, I'm going to nourish my body with some water. And the pillar of the soul asks us to get quiet and go within and become more aware of all the parts of us. And then we put the roof on our house, and this is about our life purpose. And life purpose doesn't have to mean some grand ideal of, oh, I'm living my purpose in life, being a speaker on happiness, bringing joy to the world. Purpose comes in big and small actions, and your own life purpose may simply be bringing a smile to one person's face each day. Your purpose may be creating beautiful art, whether it's musical or visual. Your purpose may be giving great hugs or taking care of your children. Some purpose and meaning can be found each and every day, and it's up to you to decide what that is and to figure it out and then to do more of it, because what lights you up moves out into the world. when you're all lit up, you shine a light on everyone around you and they get lit up too. So whatever your purpose may be, that is another vital piece of our happiness. And then finally, we have our garden. So the garden in our home for happiness is about our relationships. You may have heard that old quote that we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So in this area, I ask you to consider who those 5 people are and how they're impacting your happiness. Are they nourishing, gorgeous, good smelling gardenias and roses and lilies and lilacs? Or are they toxic weeds that are cutting off your oxygen and your lifeline? And so in this area, in the longer classes, we spend a lot of time on cleaning up our relationship with ourselves and also creating and keeping healthier boundaries and how to do that lovingly. Some of us have a hard time saying no. And in this area, we learn how to say yes to ourselves even more than we say it to other people. Okay, I'm going to stop my share and see what time it is. Okay, we're doing all right. Any questions on those 7 main areas of happiness? And while you're thinking of that, do you know which ones are your strongest and which ones are your weakest? And if you do, would you put that in the chat if you are inclined to share? Like, where do you need to put a little more attention? Those of you who have listened to me talk before or come to any of my workshops know I spend a lot of time talking about attention. That's part of the passion test, which shows up in the life purpose section of the Happy for No Reason material. What we put our attention on grows stronger in our lives. So Lauren, boundaries, very important. So what we are putting our attention on grows stronger in our lives. And that's whether we're putting our attention on what we don't want or on what we do. And so in that garden area, we really learn to put our attention on our own self-care, on those boundaries. And it's so important, focusing on body. The 7 items, you want me to say them again, Lana? So the 7 areas again were the foundation, the pillar of the mind, don't believe everything you think, the pillar of the heart, the pillar of the body, the pillar of the soul, the roof is our purpose, and then our garden, our relationships. Who are we surrounding ourselves with? A lot of us need to focus on the body and the purpose and the garden. Strongest soul and heart, body, mind, and garden, working on strengthening those. Good. Oh, Patty, thank you for being honest about that. Patty says, I struggle with taking responsibility for my own happiness. So many people do. And one of the reasons I think we do struggle with taking responsibility is because then we think it's our fault if we're unhappy, but it's not exactly what it means. When we shame ourselves or we blame ourselves or others, or we complain a lot, these are ways that we show up as victims. That's how we know we're doing it. It just depletes ourselves and everyone around us. And when we step into an empowered position of I am responsible for my happiness, we can't always change what's going on around us, but we can impact what's going on within us by cleaning up all 7 areas, right? All 7 areas create a really strong house. And we want a strong home. Our body, our mind is our own home for our happiness. And we want to implement the habits of happiness that support us, because remember, the real difference between happy people and unhappy people is simply their habits. Okay, good for you all, being more aware of where you can put your attention to strengthen those areas. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we're going to do a practice now. I'm going to break you into groups. So if you get into a group, I'm going to put 4 of you together, and hopefully at least 2 or 3 of you will have cameras on. So once you're in the group, nobody streaming on Facebook can see this, and in the recording, you will not be shown. So I'm going to encourage you to turn your cameras back on for the breakout room. And what I'm going to ask you to do is one of the most simple and powerful practices that I introduce to people and groups. I love this in groups. And it's called What's Good with Me. You can use this by yourself, or you can use this with others and actually replace that question that nobody bothers to answer most of the time, how are you, with what's good with you. So what's good with you is what you're going to ask each other in the breakout room. And I'm going to give you each 1 minute to answer the question, what's good with me? I'm going to demonstrate for approximately a minute. I'm not going to time myself, but I will be timing you what this looks like. So what's good with me is not us going into big stories. It's repeating the phrase and just grabbing something that's good with me. So what's good with me is that there are 23 of you here tonight. What's good with me is that I get to share this gift of happiness habits and skills that I know that anybody can do, and that really fires me up. What's good with me is that my camera has stayed on for the last little while. What's good with me is that my room is cozy and warm, and often it's cold. What's good with me is I can see some faces on the screen, and I love that interaction. What's good with me is I worked out all the technology tonight. It's also going on in our Facebook group, and that's cool because you never know. What's good with me is tomorrow's vacation. So this is my last little bit of work until Monday. Those are the things that are good with me. So notice I did 2 things. I kept what's good with me really short. Notice I didn't go into long stories about how the neighbors are staying quiet for once or adding negative disclaimers on my what's good with me. We do that a lot, so notice if you start to. Also, I kept repeating that phrase, what's good with me, over and over and over. And I will tell you why I do that, because our brains have what we call neural pathways. And every time we do something new, we are strengthening a neural pathway. And when we stop doing those new things, they weaken. So some of you may have learned a language in school, maybe not so long ago, and maybe really long ago. And if you haven't used it in many years, you probably can't remember. For me, it's piano, right? I learned how to play piano in high school, and now I can't even use my left hand on the piano. I don't remember how it works because I didn't keep using those neural pathways. In the mind, we talked about the negativity bias and flipping that to a positivity bias. This is one of the ways that we do that. We start looking for the good in our lives and we actually start noticing it more often. So this is your practice. So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. Breakout rooms. Okay, I'm going to put 4 of you in at a, well, oh, I'm going to create how many breakup rooms? Right, not, I always do that. I'm not making breakup rooms. You don't have to break up with each other. You're going to break out. And okay, 3 to 4 participants per room. Once you're in there, turn on your cameras, turn on your microphones, and ask each other the question, what's good with you? The person with the shortest hair will go first. Okay, and then just go around like that. That's the easiest way to do it. I'm going to create those rooms now. You each get 1 minute. I'll wait about 30 seconds to start timing, and I'll send you little messages when it's time to switch, but someone should be a timekeeper. It's helpful. Ready, set, go.
Okay.
Okay. For those of you on Facebook or watching the replay, I would invite you to simply say out loud to yourself or whoever is in the room, what's good with me is. Okay, what's good with me is. And you can also put it in the chat if you're on Facebook, or if for some reason you can't join a room. That's good. Most people joined, so that's cool. What's good with you, Facebook? You can put it in the chat or you can talk to yourself. Either way works. If you're watching this replay, just keep going. One of the fun things about this exercise is the more that you do it, the easier it gets. And like gratitude that we've talked about in our Facebook group, you can get into this what's good with me spiral where you just keep thinking of more and more and more things. So if you can't think of anything, keep trying, because it's what I call the stretch. It's still you reaching for something more positive in your experience, which also means that you are strengthening those neural pathways, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And this is true in happiness as well. Oh, I was supposed to tell them to switch. Everybody's coming back. Welcome back. How did that feel? I feel lots of big smiles. That's
It was
good.
nice. It was fun.
I'm good.
I loved it.
Yay.
Hard to start.
Fantastic.
Hard to start, but sometimes harder to stop once you get started.
Yes, that's what I like
Yeah.
to hear.
Feels good.
Yeah. Beautiful. Imagine changing that "how are you" question in every interaction to "what's good with you." And imagine how that will change your interaction with everybody around you. It's such a beautiful, simple tool. And people will stop and be like, what did you just ask me? Because we're used to just being like, fine, thanks, keep going, if they even bother to answer, right? So what's good with you sets a tone for a more positive conversation with anyone. So yay, I love that you did that and that you've experienced that, which is one of my favorites. Now, we're closing in on an hour. We're going to go over a little bit, but I put 90 minutes in the meetup group just so we had some time. Right now, my neighbors are making some noise, but that's okay. Now, take a moment and I want you to consider your happiness level now in this moment and rate it. And maybe write it down and then share in the chat the change in your numbers, if there is one. Okay, we've got a 9 there. I didn't see a 9 before. And then, yeah, tell us how many points your score went up. And if you're over on Facebook, you can do the same. Tell us what your happiness score is. Cool, Lawrence went up 2. Ed stayed the same, but I think Ed's a reasonably happy guy. That's okay, Lana. Sarah's went up 3, 7 to 8. Good. So lots of increases. Oh, beautiful, Victoria. Went from 7 to 8, realized with the exercise, I have a wonderful life. See, we often don't even notice how good our lives are until we start putting some attention on it. And that's why tools like gratitude are so important. Actually writing down, or at least very consciously considering what you are grateful for in your life, very specifically, not just like, oh, I'm so grateful for family and friends, but, oh, I'm so grateful for my 2 best friends who I have a text chat with every single day, or I'm so grateful for the hug I got from my boyfriend today, or I'm so grateful for the way my family all comes together when any one of us needs someone. Getting really specific about what's good in your lives helps you notice more of it. And while you guys were all in breakout rooms, I was talking to myself, or whoever's watching this on the replay or on Facebook who didn't have the opportunity to go into a breakout room. And I was saying that's what happens when we start noticing the good. We go into like this gratitude spiral. It's like, oh, but this is good too, and this is good, and this is good. And we just start noticing it more and more and more, because what we're doing is training our neurology to notice it. And so if you practiced this one tool or gratitude every single day for a couple of minutes, I guarantee you your experience will change for the better. Everything works when we do. And one of the reasons we resist change is what you experienced earlier. It feels weird and uncomfortable and awkward. And I like to say that it's hard at first. Change is hard at first. It's messy in the middle. We can feel all discombobulated. And it's beautiful at the end when you can look back and go, I was there and now I'm here. And here feels really good. And that's what I want for all of you. Okay. So this is what a practice and an implementation of new happiness habits can do for you. That score can keep rising. And as new and different challenges come up in your lives, you can more gracefully and fluidly move through them. Instead of having them stop you in your tracks, you'll keep your attention on what's going well for you and what you're learning and how you're growing. And life will continue to get better. You will get stronger in your mind and stronger in all 7 areas of your happiness. Even if you only utilize the 2 tools I taught you today, that inner ease technique and what's good with you. You use those 2 tools for a few weeks and you will notice a dramatic difference. And I would invite you to go back to your original score and see how it's risen. I spent 11 weeks teaching a class of high schoolers at the International Academy, an in-depth version of what we're learning tonight. We spent 1 or more classes on each area of happiness. And they took a happiness questionnaire at the beginning. Every single one of them had their happiness scores go up. Some went up by over 30 points. And after those statistics that I told you in the beginning, 1 out of 4 women are on antidepressants and 40% of college students are reporting that they're so depressed or overwhelmed they can't function in a day. We need this work and we need to do it for ourselves so that we can show others what's possible. And for those of you who are parents, whether you're grandparents at this point or parents of adult children or parents of teens or adolescents or younger kids, or bosses, right? Because that's like parenting. Being a boss is like parenting. When you do this work for yourself, you demonstrate what's possible. You show instead of tell the people who are in your care what life can be like. And for me, it's that ripple effect that is so important and so vital. We deserve our happiness and people deserve to see it. So I want to share an opportunity with you now because I feel like it would be irresponsible for me to give you 1 hour and not give you an opportunity to go deeper. So I offered this class last year and it is called Your Happiness Deep Dive, where we go into each area in depth. And this year I've changed it up a little bit and we are going to do 8 weeks in a row of 1 hour so that we can go deep into each area and learn a new habit and technique every single week to support our happiness in all 7 areas. And we will also have a private Facebook group if you're on Facebook, and if not, it doesn't matter. It's just where I will show up a little more often, encouraging you, inspiring you, sharing different tools so that you get even more support. And if you're like, no, Tamara, this is good enough, or I don't want to, I'm not buying your darn class, that's okay. I am online offering this stuff all the time. So if you've enjoyed this hour, if you've learned something new, if you like being in my energy because it's uplifting, because I do my work, you can join our group on Facebook. You can watch me on YouTube. You can see my 30-second reels on Instagram, or, you know, if you're interested in going deeper, this class is on offer. Let me get to my details. For those of you who are still here, I'm going to thank you for spending this time with me. If you're not interested in going deeper in and creating lasting happiness with support, then I thank you for your time and you're free to go. And if you have questions, thank you, Juliet. feel free to drop them in the chat and I will hang out and answer them. And for those of you who do want to learn how to build those happiness muscles and create those new habits so that you can create a new way of being with an inner sense of peace and well-being, then you might want to take the deep dive with me. So 8 weeks starting January 18th. We're going to do Tuesdays for an hour at 5:30 p.m. EST on Zoom. So it will be live and interactive and recorded so that if you miss a class, you can come back to it. And you'll be held accountable. One thing I know as a coach is that, thanks to, we all need support and accountability. Even I do, right? I need someone to be like, hey, are you using your tools? Are you practicing? And I am that person for a lot of people. We are all just building happiness muscles, and we are all just working on strengthening our neurology to support us in our happiness. It really is as simple as that, even though it's not always easy. So in this class, we are going to go deep, and I'm offering this for the same rate as people pay me for 3 hours of my time. So you're going to get 8 hours of group coaching and learning and training and new happiness habits for $333. And because this is what you do when you have people with you, I want to give you a fast action bonus. So if you are like, this is what I need to do, this is exactly what I need to make my 2022 my best year yet, because I freaking deserve it, you do, then I am offering you a rate before the new year if you sign up. So it's $275 if you sign up before the new year. And the link is available on my website, and I'm going to grab it for you in just a second. So tonight through Friday at midnight, it's just $275 for 8 weeks in a highly supportive, immersive happiness experience. And I just want you to close your eyes and imagine for a second what it would feel like. Say it's the end of March, and your happiness set point and that score has just continued to go up and up and up. What would be possible for you? How would life change if you had the energy that happiness brings us? What could you accomplish? How would you influence the people around you? And most importantly, how would you feel in your own body and mind when you put the habits of happiness into place? And a word on habits, they don't just take 3 weeks to create, okay? That's old school thinking, but realistically, it takes around 72 days for a new habit to be fully established into a way of being. 72 days, that is 3 months, give or take, math. So I want to offer you that support because it's my purpose and mission to help individuals create happier lives for themselves so that that ripple effect takes place. So I have one other offer for you, which is free. You're still on this call with me, so all you have to do is email me and I will send you a free workbook with the 21 habits of happiness. It comes from the Happy for No Reason book. It lists out all 7 areas of happiness and 3 habits. I believe it's 3 habits for each. If not, it's 1 or 2 habits for each to support that area of happiness. And it's really in depth, and that is yours, no matter what you decide to do. So you can email me and ask for your happiness habits workbook. You're welcome, Kimberly. Thank you for being here. So email me at tamara@alifeyoulovenow.com and I will send you that happiness habits workbook by Monday. I'm not going to promise because I'm not working after tonight. And if you want to join me for the deep dive, I'm just going to grab the link for you right now from my website. So it's on the website, alifeyoulovenow.com, and it should be live now. Yes, deep dive. Okay, Okay, the app price I actually put in there was $277 because I like sevens and weird numbers. So I'm gonna grab that link for you and throw it in here in the chat. And I will type in my email as well. There's the deep dive link. It's open now to register. If you do register, not only do you get that discount, but in the next three days, I'll throw in a 30-minute private one-on-one call so that when we do talk about the passion test, I can actually take you through yours. Okay, my email is tamara@alifeyoulovenow.com. There you go. It is in the chat. I'm done selling you on my program because you already know if it's what you want and what you need. I encourage you to go with your gut and know that this is like a ridiculously easy offer to say yes to because you deserve it. Because in the scheme of things, it's less than what you would spend on Starbucks coffee in like 9 months. You probably spent 3 times as much on meaningless Christmas gifts. You deserve to invest in yourself and in your happiness, and this is a long-term, lifelong investment that you deserve. Before you go, again, I just want to thank you so much for your time, and I want to leave you with this beautiful Chinese proverb. When there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there is harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. I know that this is true. There is peace in my home, and I have almost three teenagers. It can be peaceful for you too. Life can feel good. You can have this inner sense of peace and well-being. And you don't have to join my class to have it. You simply need to start practicing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Patty. Yes, you can sign up after leaving this meeting on the website. It is alifeyoulovenow.com. And thank you, Kimberly. And yes, the cart will be open. The class doesn't start until the 18th. So the cart will be open. The discount goes through the new year. At midnight, it'll change to the 333. You're welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming. And again, if you want to watch this again or invite someone to join our Facebook group, if you're on Facebook, the replay will be up for 2 weeks so that you can really feel into this decision. You don't have to make a right now decision. And I know from experience that if you feel the call, it's better to act now before you talk yourself out of it. Thank you, Kathy. I'm so glad you came. Belle, it is, you're going to look for this group, Create a Life You Love Now on Facebook. I'll grab the link. Actually, I did put the link in the meetup comments on this particular meetup's comments, so you can find it there too and go straight to it. You're welcome, April. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to officially stop recording so I can see all of you. Thank you again.